Many men that I meet are exhausted. Not because life is too hard, but because they've been avoiding the hard things that would actually make them stronger. You see, comfort doesn't make us peaceful, even though it may in the short term. Comfort makes us restless. And deep down, if we're honest with ourselves, we know it. Because you weren't built to escape pressure, you were built to carry it. So today, we're talking about suffering, sacrifice, and sharpening, and why avoiding them is costing men their edge. So grab a pen and start taking notes, because this is going to be a good one. Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, the place where high-performing men are empowered to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness while enhancing their career success. You see, in a world full of noise, burnout, and mediocrity, we believe what's missing is courageous and compassionate leadership in the home, because when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. You see, this isn't just a podcast. It's a movement for men who refuse to settle for less in their families, in their focus, and their future. We are curse breakers and we are legacy makers. I am your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm honored that you've chosen to invest your most valuable asset, which is your time, with me today. Now let's get into it. All right, brother, let's just jump straight into this. I'm going to say this right off the top. This episode is not going to be for everyone. It's not for the men who are chasing hacks. If you're listening to this, it's not going to be for you if you're constantly looking for shortcuts, all right? And it's not going to be for you if you want comfort wrapped in a masculine aesthetic. This is for the man who feels a pull toward more, but knows that more will demand something extra from him. This is for the man who understands that growth isn't free. It costs discipline, it costs sacrifice, and it's going to cost you your comfort. Today, we're going to talk about suffering, sacrifice, and sharpening, not as punishment, not as cruelty, but as the forge of leadership. Because every great man, without exception, has been shaped by pressure. Now, I know you might be listening to me and you're thinking, well, what does he mean? That's a bold statement. Why is it that hard things forge great men? Well, let me unpack it for you, because there's a lie that many modern men believe. They've absorbed it, they've lived by it without even realizing it. And this is what the lie is. It's this: if life were easier, I would be better. But history tells a different story. One of the clearest voices on this comes from a gentleman named Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book called A Man's Search for Meaning. You've heard me reference his work and his book often on this show. He was a psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps, and he watched men around him lose everything: their status, their comfort, their dignity, their freedom. And what he discovered wasn't despair, it was clarity. Frankl wrote in his book, "What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal." You see, Frankl didn't theorize this from a comfortable office. He lived it while watching men starve, suffer, and ultimately die. But here's what he observed. Men who found meaning, even in suffering, endured. Men who lost purpose collapsed. Now, this distinction matters because suffering without meaning crushes men, but suffering with meaning forges them. Okay? Stay with me. Pain alone does not make you strong. Purpose does. And this is where modern men get stuck. You see, they suffer, but aimlessly. They struggle, but resentfully. They endure, but without direction. And without meaning, pain becomes bitterness. Let me say that again. Without meaning or a sense of why, pain becomes bitterness. I believe it was Friedrich Nietzsche that said, "He who has a why can bear almost any how." And that's really what he's talking about here. Because when suffering is tied to a mission, a calling, or a responsibility, that suffering becomes fuel. And that is why comfort is so dangerous, because comfort asks nothing of you, but meaning demands everything. David Data captures this perfectly in the book called The Way of the Superior Man, which is another book I've referenced here. In the book, he writes, "A man's growth is measured by the size of the challenge he willingly takes on." In other words, A man's edge, the place where he becomes stronger and sharper and more capable, is always just beyond his point of comfort. I want you to remember that because we're going to come back to it. Here's the thing. If you live your life just a step past what you think your edge is, and you get comfortable with facing that discomfort, you will grow exponentially year over year. Growth requires resistance. Let's make this practical. You think about it for a second. Muscles do not grow without loading them, right? You grow muscles by literally tearing them and then repairing them, right? A marriage doesn't grow and become stronger without facing conflict, right? You don't become more patient without having your patience tested. How many of you guys have had your patience tested in marriage or in fatherhood? That's how you get to be a more patient father or a husband. You don't become courageous without facing your fear. You see, fear is the key ingredient in being courageous. If you don't have to face fear, it's not called courage. Right? You ever think about that? You don't become disciplined without ever wanting to quit. It's the very fact of the desire to quit and you overcoming it is what makes you disciplined. You see, pressure reveals who you are and then gives you the chance to become more. And here's the truth that most men don't want to face. Most men don't live soft lives because they're weak. They live soft lives because they avoid pain. Listen, pain is not your enemy. Comfort is. Okay, let's just put that on the table right away. We need to reframe the villain in this narrative because pain gets blamed all the time. But it's comfort that does the damage because it's your comfort that dulls your hunger. Comfort is what lowers your standards. Comfort is what sedates masculinity. And comfort is what whispers, "You've earned this rest," when you've barely begun the work. Have you ever been there? I know I have. I've been there just in January. I set some new goals for myself. By January 4, 5, 6, 7, I was already feeling that voice of comfort. Hey, take a break. You deserve it. Yeah, maybe you don't need to meet that goal, right? Jim Rohn said it better than anyone, and this is a very famous quote, and I've quoted this many times. It's literally changed the way I see my life. But here's the quote. We must all suffer from one of two pains. One, the pain of discipline, or the pain of regret. But you see, discipline weighs ounces, while regret weighs tons. That line should stop you in your tracks for a moment because it tells us something unavoidable. It tells us that either way, you're going to suffer. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. The only choice you get is which pain you're willing to carry. You see, discipline might hurt now, but regret hurts later and longer. I want to read something to you, and I want you to listen to this carefully. If you're training at the gym, stop and take a rest for a moment. If you're mowing the grass, just turn off the mower for a moment. If you're doing anything distracting, stop and lock in with me for a moment. Being your best is hard, but being normal is hard. Making wise decisions is hard, but making bad decisions is hard. Being in shape is hard, but being out of shape is hard. Losing weight is hard. Being overweight is hard. Working out is hard. Being weak is hard. Being disciplined is hard. Being lazy is hard. Starting a business is hard. Working for someone else is hard. Making a lot of money is hard, but being broke is hard. Having friends is hard. Having no friends is hard. Having a great marriage is hard, but divorce is also hard. Having a lot of things is hard, but having nothing is hard. Listen, everything in life is hard. You just have to choose which hard you want to face. Choose your pain. Now, when you hear me say that, what does it stir in you? Because most men aren't choosing between easy and hard. They're choosing between hard now or hard later. You see, and that's the problem with comfort. Comfort delays pain, but discipline actually directs the pain. And then leadership demands the second option. Leadership demands that discipline would stick into your life and direct that pain into purpose. I want to share a scripture with you that really kind of explains this analogy well, because scripture has always understood this far better than modern culture. It's a well-known passage, Proverbs 27:17, and it says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another." Now that verse sounds noble until you understand what sharpening actually feels like. Sharpening is actually friction. Friction feels uncomfortable. Discomfort creates sparks. But you see, a blade isn't sharpened by affirmations, attaboys, and participation trophies. A blade is sharpened when it comes into contact with something harder than itself. But you see, modern culture celebrates ease, it applauds mediocrity, and it hands out participation trophies for effort without excellence. But hear me say this, men are not refined by applause. They are refined by pressure, by accountability, and by truth. Real men are sharpened, not soothed. And this is exactly why brotherhood matters. This is why I talk about community so much. Because you can't sharpen yourself in isolation. Men need other men who will challenge them, call them higher, refuse to let them stay comfortable. Arm in arm adversity, chosen and intentional pressure, honest accountability. And what's the result? A razor sharp mind, a resilient body, and the emotional strength to lead your wife and your family with steadiness and your kids with confidence. Ecclesiastes 4:12 reminds us this. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. There's power in community. You see, isolation weakens men, but the brotherhood strengthens them. And that's why I talk so much about my program called the High Performance Husband, because it's designed to do everything that I just said. And if that's something you're interested in, hit the link in the show notes below, book a call, and we'll discuss if you're a good fit for the program. But if you're not already convinced about the importance of facing adversity, let's raise the stakes a little bit. Because this journey isn't just about self-improvement. It's about responsibility. Because listen, your wife does not need a man who collapses under stress. She needs steadiness when things get hard. Your kids don't need a dad who avoids discomfort. They need a model of strength, resilience, and follow-through. They don't need a perfect man. They need a seasoned one. A man who faces resistance, a man who has endured hardship, a man who has learned how to stand when it would be easier to stay kicked down, when it would be easier to quit. You see, leadership in the home isn't about control. Leadership in the home is about capacity, and capacity is built under load. Another passage for you, James 1:2-4, puts it plainly. It says this, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. So let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything." Now, James talks a lot about persevering in the faith, but this can also be applied in so many other ways. So what am I saying? If you don't want to do it for you, do it for your family. Because their future depends on your willingness to step up in the present. Now, I know you're going to be, maybe some of you are going to be thinking this because I get it all the time in the DMs or different conversations I have with men. They might be thinking things like, why do I have to step up? Why do I have to take this weight on? Why can't my wife do it, right? Why has it always got to be me? Well, if you're asking yourself those questions, I want you to lean in for this next point. Hey, brother, let me ask you something. And I want you to really think about this. Are you winning at work, but quietly kind of losing ground at home? Maybe you're the guy people rely on. You stay calm in meetings. You carry that pressure all day. And you kind of wear that like a badge of honor. But maybe when you walk through the front door at home, your wife feels distant. Conversations feel shorter. And instead of being excited to come home, maybe work feels easier. Nothing is broken, but something is slowly drifting. And if you're telling yourself right now, I'm going to fix this when things slow down, or I'm going to fix this when things get easier, if you're honest with yourself, you already know they won't slow down. They won't get easier. Well, the High Performance Husband is for men who are done coasting. It's for men who want to win at home like they win at work. You see, this isn't therapy. It's not about fixing your wife. It's not for men who want quick hacks. It's for men who want to be calm under pressure, strong in their body, clear in their thinking, and to become the man that your wife and kids look up to with pride. So if you're listening to this and you know that what got you here won't get you where you want to go, I want you to go to dadnationco.com/accelerator or click the link in the show notes below And then you can apply to join this accelerator and join myself and many other like-minded men who are leveling up in their home, in their health, and their happiness. They're winning all year long. It's a 12-month mentorship. It's going to change your life. All right, now let's jump back into the episode. I want you to lean in for this next point. Hear me say this clearly. You were built for adversity. And this is something modern culture gets deeply wrong about masculinity. You see, it treats adversity like an accident, like an interruption, like something men should escape from. But adversity isn't a glitch in the system. It is the system. You were not randomly designed. You were not accidentally wired the way you are. As a man, as a husband, as a father, you were built for pressure. Let's talk about this practically for a moment. You carry more muscle mass than your wife. In most cases, you're physically larger than her. And that's not cosmetic. That's functional. It's by design. You were designed to bear a greater load. You have higher levels of testosterone. That's not for aggression. It's for your drive. You see, it fuels risk-taking. It fuels problem-solving, taking initiative, and it fuels your leadership. You were built for more adversity emotionally, right? You were more capable of compartmentalizing emotion under stress, not to suppress it, but to contain it long enough to act wisely. Another way you were built for adversity is you're naturally future-oriented. You think in terms of provision, protection, trajectory, and legacy. And you were actually designed to carry a higher tolerance for risk, which means you were built to step forward even when things are uncertain, not retreat. You see, none of this is accidental. It's very strategic and purpose-driven. You see, from the beginning, men were meant to go first into difficulty, to face the storm, not hide from it. You see, Scripture reinforces this pattern time and time again. And if you're listening to this and you're not a believer, that's fine. But we've used the Bible as a source of wisdom and understanding and strength for thousands of years. And in the book of Genesis, which is the very first book of the Bible, there's a story about Adam, the man who was first created. You see, the book of Genesis doesn't show Adam being created into a garden of ease. He's given responsibility before he's given comfort. He's given work, responsibility to steward things, accountability. So if you haven't heard it yet, here's the anchoring truth I want you to hear clearly. You were not designed to avoid adversity. You were designed to lead through it, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, relationally. But when men run from pressure, they don't become peaceful. They become anxious. They become restless and passive. But when men step into pressure with purpose, something shifts. They stabilize. They get clarity. They mature. And this is why men who embrace responsibility often feel more alive, even when life is harder. This is why I say everyone needs to have kids. Because when you get the responsibility of another life, another human life, there ain't nothing going to make you grow up and mature faster than that. Something shifts in a man when he becomes a father, I'm telling you. Now, why does this happen? Well, it happens because your wiring finally has something worthy to carry. And people ask me all the time, how do you do it all? How do you manage everything? You seem like you never get tired. Where does your energy come from? Well, friend, let me tell you, my energy comes from my purpose. It's crystal clear. There is no ambiguity around why I've been placed here on this earth. I'm not confused as to what I'm doing here. Everything I do is very crystal clear. I've spent many years thinking through that. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've come up against walls and had to kick them down again and again and again. Just ask my wife. She'll tell you all about it. And you know what? I've actually grown to like it. The more that I've learned about my wiring, the more that I've learned about my masculinity, the more that I've learned about my role as a husband, as a father, as a man, as a leader, the more I've learned to welcome discomfort. Now I welcome adversity because I've proven that time and time again, breakthrough is just on the other side of that wall. Hey, can I ask you something real quick? If this show has helped you out in any way, if you've gotten any value, clarity, or even just one gut check moment that's made you a better man, husband, or father, would you take 60 seconds and leave us an honest rating or review? And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss a drop. And if you really want to pay it forward, share this episode with a friend. Why? Because we know that there are millions of men out there silently struggling in their marriage, in their health, and in their mindset. Men who maybe were where you were just a few steps ago, feeling tired, stuck, and searching for answers. Finding this podcast might be the thing that changes everything for them. So thank you for being part of this movement and for helping more men become the husbands and fathers their families so desperately need. Now let's get back to the show. Before we wrap up this episode, there's something that came to me, and I've talked about this in earlier episodes, but neurologists actually have proven this. There's something called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. This is a part of your brain. It's a brain structure that neurologists have studied, and this is pretty groundbreaking, relatively new studies that they've uncovered. But what they've observed in high-performing individuals, some of the best athletes in the world, people who have gone through significant trauma, people who regularly face adversity, and here's the key: they do the things they don't want to do. When you are doing a task that maybe you do not want to do, you're not good at, this part of the brain, this brain structure, your anterior mid-cingulate cortex, actually grows in size. Okay. Now they've observed this brain structure in people who don't face adversity, who don't push themselves, who do whatever it is. They live lives of ease and pleasure. So some of the test subjects were obese people who might just eat whatever they want and not exercise. They don't challenge themselves. They don't do anything they don't want to do. The AMCC, or this brain structure, is actually much smaller in these people. And this is fascinating because what neurologists are now coming to believe is that they can prove that the key to increasing your willpower is to actually do things that you do not want to do, aka face adversity. And your brain physically changes its structure, which is pretty incredible. So by now, I've given you a lot of reasons why you, as a man, husband, and father, should get comfortable with discomfort. I've talked about it from a relational perspective. From a neurological perspective, from a DNA perspective, how we're wired, even what the Bible talks about it, right? Brother, if you're listening today, it's critical. All right, so let's bring this home. If you want the edge, if you want to increase your edge, if you want more vitality, more energy, more life, you have to stop dodging difficulty. If you want to lead in a greater capacity, you have to move toward resistance, not run away from it. If you want to become the man your future demands, let pressure do its work. Don't numb it. Don't outsource it to anyone else. I want you to learn to face the fire and let it burn off what doesn't belong. Let it expose excuses. Let it strengthen what remains, because the truth does not change. Most men will never lead because they've never suffered. But you're choosing differently. You're choosing discipline over drift. You're choosing responsibility over avoidance. You're choosing meaning over comfort. And trust me, it will show. It will show up in how you speak. It will show up in how you carry yourself into rooms. It will show up in how you handle conflict. It will show up in how you lead your home, because fire will always leave a mark. The question is whether it refines you or whether you will keep running from it. So I want to leave you with 3 questions. I want you to sit with them. Okay, I don't want you to rush through them. All right. They're called reflection questions for a reason. Okay, so if you're watching on YouTube, bookmark these areas, note it down. I don't care. And if you have a pen, write them down. Here's the first question. What challenge are you currently avoiding, but deep down you know it's meant to strengthen you? Second question. Where else in your life have you been choosing comfort instead of growth? And the third question I want you to wrestle with is this. What past hardship has shaped you into a stronger, more capable man, even if it didn't feel that way at the time? Now, these aren't questions designed to make you feel guilty or to make you feel shameful. All right? They're clarity questions. Questions designed to uncover something. And if you sit with them and answer them honestly, they will bring clarity. And if you're discouraged because you feel like you've missed your time, you've spent too much time not doing these things, let me tell you this. You will never have more time than what you have right now. Okay? The past is the past. But right now, you will never have more time than what you have right now. Second thing, which you've heard me say this a million times by now. I love the Chinese proverb. The best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago. The second best time, today. And now that you've got those reflection questions, I want to give you a practical exercise. The sharpening challenge. Okay? I want you to make this practical. You're going to choose your suffering intentionally. I want you to write down 3 hard things that you will willingly choose in the next 7 days. Not dramatic things, not over the top, not reckless things, formative things. Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a demanding workout that you'd rather not do. Maybe it's waking up earlier to work on your mission or your passion project. Maybe it's saying no to distractions that are dulling your edge. Or maybe it's choosing discipline over dopamine. The point here isn't punishment. The point is sharpening. Because when you suffer strategically, when you sacrifice intentionality, you don't break. You become dangerous in the best way. So I want you to write them down. What are your commitments? What are you going to face this week that's going to be difficult for you? And I want you to commit to them. And I want you to step into them. Listen, you do not rise by ease. You rise by pushing yourself to the edge, but not over it. So suffer strategically, sacrifice intentionally, sharpen yourself daily, and lead like the man you were built to be. That's it for me this week, brother. As always, I am in your corner. All right, we'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. Listen, if today's conversation challenged you, if it encouraged you or helped you level up in any area of your life, would you do me a favor? Take 60 seconds to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us reach more men who need to hear this message. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Dad Nation YouTube channel, where you're going to find full episodes, clips, and exclusive content designed to help you win at home just like you do at work. All right, remember, your family does not need perfection. They need your presence. Your leadership matters. So keep showing up, keep leveling up, and never forget, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. We'll see you next time.